Dear enlightened soul, there is something the angels want you to know, something that came directly from a silent night, from a deep and intimate moment. A message that crosses the boundaries of time and space to reach you right now. An echo of a heart that, amidst the weight of loneliness and the pain of absence, found a kind of rest. But not just any rest. This came with an insight, a truth, something that could change the way you see what has happened up until now. The night the angels showed me was marked by a deep emptiness, a sense of loss that was not easy to carry. The emptiness was not simple. It reflected something much bigger. It was the absence of something essential. And it was in this space, in this painful silence, that a revelation came to the surface. A truth that perhaps had never been spoken, but that had always been felt in the background of everyday life. Something that touched his soul and transformed it forever. The angels showed me that, in the midst of this loneliness and pain, there was a moment of clarity. It wasn't just the emptiness that was felt. It was something much more powerful. The realization that, even though life had moved forward, something was missing. Not just anything, but a presence, an energy, something that couldn't be replaced by anything. And it was in that moment, when the pain seemed unbearable, that an essential truth emerged. A light that had been kept in a soul began to shine. It wasn't a light visible to the eyes of the world, but a spiritual light, something that transcends the physical. Something felt in the heart and soul. And in that moment of clarity, the realization was inevitable. The person who went through that introspective moment saw something that had never been understood before. They saw the impact of something that had been left behind, saw the lack of that energy, that presence. It may seem hard to understand, but the pain that emerged is not just about what was lost in the physical sense. It's about the absence of something much deeper. Something that, in some way, was given and never truly valued as it should have been. A light, a force, something so essential that until now, without realizing it, this soul found itself lost in its absence. And, no matter how much they tried to move forward, they couldn't escape the emptiness that was now so present. The angels showed me the weight of the night when this revelation was lived. It wasn't just any night. It was a night of understanding. A night when, finally, the soul of the one who feels lost was able to see the reality of the impact that another presence had in their life. And the most remarkable part of all this is that this light is not a physical gift. It cannot be touched, but it is felt on a deep and eternal level. Now, in this moment, the pain begins to transform. What once seemed like a simple emptiness starts to be filled with the perception of something much bigger. The understanding that the presence of that light, even though it seems absent now, is still there. In a subtle but powerful way. As if it were an energy that can never be extinguished. And, no matter how much the world tries to move forward, this light will never be forgotten. The person who received it now understands, much more clearly, what it means to have been touched by it. If this message touched your heart and you feel it brings something important to your life, don't let this energy pass by. Click the thanks button to show you are ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery and transformation. Every step taken toward the light is a step that connects us more deeply to what truly matters. Don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with those you believe need to hear these words. That night wasn't simply a night of sadness. It was the catalyst for a deep transformation. The person who went through that moment of reflection now stands before a truth that cannot be ignored. Everything that has happened so far begins to make sense in a different way. Every gesture, every unspoken word, every little moment that seemed insignificant is now revealed as essential to the life journey of the one who received that light. It's curious how, many times, we can only understand the value of things when we lose them. But in this case, the loss is not an end. It is a beginning. A new start that comes from accepting what was given, but for some reason was never truly understood while it was present. And it is this lack, this absence, that now serves as a mirror, reflecting the true importance of what was lost. During that night, the person understood something crucial. The presence of that light wasn't just a support, it wasn't just something that made the days easier. It was something that was part of the essence of the one receiving it. It was an energy, a force that could never be replaced. No matter how much they try to fill that space with other things or other people, the emptiness remains, waiting to be filled by the only thing capable of doing so, the light that was left behind. This emptiness is not something that can be healed with distractions. It's not a passing pain that resolves with time. It's a deep pain that can only be transformed when the truth is seen clearly. And that clarity came in an immense way, like a wave sweeping through the mind and heart, revealing what had been hidden in the shadows of indecision and fear. Now, the person can no longer ignore what lies before them. The truth is immense, and there's no turning back. The loneliness that was felt until that moment now seems lighter. Not because the pain has disappeared, but because the person finally understood that they are not alone. There is an energy that has always been there, waiting to be recognized. The presence of that light isn't a distant memory, but something that remains, even if in silence. Something that touches the soul deeply, something that stays alive in the heart, even when the world around tries to suppress its existence. And it is in this space of acceptance that the person begins to realize that, in some way, this absence no longer needs to be seen as a burden. Not anymore. On the contrary, it is now an opportunity. A chance to understand what it really means to live, to comprehend the value of true connections, of what was given with generosity and love. And it is from this realization that a transformation begins to happen, small but firm. This change begins to expand, starting from within. It's not something that happens visibly at first, but it's a process that unfolds quietly within. The person begins to open up to new possibilities, to understand that what seemed lost may not have truly been lost at all. And at the moment when this perception begins to form, something in the environment also starts to shift, as if the universe is helping to align things for this awakening to be possible. Something important begins to emerge in this process of transformation, the true understanding of the impact that the presence of something or someone had on this person's life. Before, everything seemed like a simple act of existing. Now, the weight of daily actions begins to reveal itself as something bigger, something that touched the heart in a profound way. What once seemed like just a daily interaction now gains a new perspective, something that was once hidden in the subtext of conversations and gestures. The light that was given, even though momentarily forgotten, never truly faded. On the contrary, it stayed alive in a deep part of the being, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. That moment has arrived. And, once recognized, this light not only illuminates the path of the past but also opens new horizons for the future. What seemed like an end now transforms, in this moment, into a new beginning. A chance to see the world in a deeper, more authentic way. The empty space created by the absence of this light begins to transform into something different. It's no longer a hole but an opening. An invitation for something new to enter, an opportunity for something more meaningful to fill that space. And what fills this emptiness isn't new distractions or attempts to replace what was lost. What fills this space is a new understanding, a new connection to what truly matters. It's interesting how, many times, we try to fill our emptiness with external things, hoping they will bring us peace or happiness. But true transformation happens when we realize that, instead of looking outside for what's missing, we must look inward. It's in the silence of self-awareness that we find the peace we're searching for, and it's in that peace that the truest connections begin to arise, bringing clarity and wisdom. The person who has gone through this experience begins to realize that the true journey is not about finding what's missing, but recognizing what's already present. What was given, even if it wasn't fully appreciated in the moment, has always been there, waiting to be recognized and embraced. This recognition doesn't happen overnight, but it's a gradual process of acceptance, one that requires patience and courage to look within and understand one's own journey. Time, which often seems like an enemy, now presents itself in a different way. It's no longer a measure of loss or regret. It transforms into an ally, a tool for reflection and inner growth. Each passing day becomes an opportunity to understand more deeply what has transpired, and to realize that what was lived, no matter how painful it was, had a purpose that only now is beginning to be understood. This transformation is not a fast process. It requires time, reflection, and a real willingness to open up to new ways of seeing the world and the people around. But as the person allows themselves to go through this process, something deep begins to happen. Old pains begin to dissipate, and a sense of clarity and freedom starts to take over. What once seemed like a burden now transforms into a new starting point, a beginning that comes with more wisdom and more intention. As this journey of reflection and acceptance unfolds, something important begins to happen within this person, the realization of the impact of the lost connection. It's not a superficial understanding, but a deep feeling that something essential was left behind, something that cannot be replaced or easily overcome. The person begins to realize that it's not just a physical absence, but something much deeper that has been lost, something that touched their soul. The emptiness, which once seemed like an overwhelming weight, now begins to be viewed differently. It is no longer seen as something that needs to be filled any way possible. On the contrary, the emptiness becomes a space for introspection, a place where the truth can emerge and be understood. This emptiness is now seen as an opportunity, a chance for transformation, an open field where new realities can be created. What happens when someone finally realizes what they've really lost? Often, this realization comes with a mix of pain and gratitude. The pain of knowing that time was wasted, that opportunities weren't seized as they should have been. But at the same time, there's a sense of gratitude for having been touched by something so valuable. This blend of feelings creates a powerful space for healing and awakening, where it's possible to finally see things as they truly are. And in this moment of clarity, something surprising begins to happen. Things that once seemed small and insignificant begin to take on new meaning. Small gestures of kindness, words of support, or even moments of silence become precious memories. What was once taken for granted is now seen as a rare gift, something that should never be taken for granted. The person begins to realize that, even in the little things, there's immense beauty that was previously hidden. As the person surrenders to reflection, they begin to understand the importance of living in the present moment. No longer seeking what can be recovered, but focusing on what can still be lived. The realization that life is made up of moments, and that each one carries an important lesson, starts to take shape. What was once a constant struggle against time now transforms into an acceptance of the natural flow of life. This shift in perspective is gradual, but powerful. The pain, which once seemed endless, now mixes with the wisdom gained along the journey. Regret begins to give way to understanding. The desire to relive what was lost makes way for gratitude for what was lived. The person begins to see that, despite the flaws, each moment was part of a path that is now becoming clearer, brighter. As the person continues on this process, a new sense of purpose begins to emerge. It's not a purpose imposed from the outside, but an internal understanding that life has a greater meaning. This new understanding leads the person to make more conscious decisions, to live more authentically, and to seek what truly matters. The person begins to feel that, even after all the losses, there is still something precious to be experienced. As time moves forward, the inner journey of someone going through this awakening process begins to deepen. What was once just a lament for the absence now transforms into a lesson about the importance of being present, living fully and consciously. The person realizes that, many times, life passes unnoticed, and the value of things is only understood when looking back. This new perception causes the person to begin valuing the connections they still have more. Relationships that were once taken for granted are now seen with a more attentive, more loving eye. The recognition that true happiness doesn't lie in material possessions or external achievements, but in the people and moments that make the heart beat, becomes clear. What was once taken for granted is now treated as a precious gift. It's interesting to observe how, through this inner transformation, priorities begin to shift. What seemed urgent and important now reveals itself as superficial and fleeting. The things that were once pursued with so much effort and anxiety begin to lose their importance, and new ways of seeking inner peace begin to emerge. The journey of self-awareness becomes more intense, and the person begins to feel a need to explore their own being more deeply. In this process of discovery, the person begins to let go of what no longer serves them. This doesn't mean abandoning everything, but rather making more conscious choices about what should remain in life. Each choice becomes clearer, more aligned with the inner purpose. The person feels that they are shedding the weight of the past and making room for the new, for what truly matters, and for what is yet to come. As the person lives this transformation process, external connections begin to reflect internally. Each relationship is now seen as a mirror, a reflection of one's own emotions and feelings. Interactions with others cease to be mere superficial exchanges and become deep moments of learning and growth. The person begins to realize that, by changing their inner world, they also begin to change the world around them. This transformation is not something that happens overnight, but a gradual process that requires patience, dedication, and a sincere commitment to personal growth. Every step taken is an advance toward authenticity, toward the freedom of being who one truly is. And, in this process, the person begins to realize that, instead of seeking externally what's missing, it's important to look inward and trust their own path. The moment of clarity that was experienced in the past now reflects itself in concrete actions. Decisions that were once made with fear or uncertainty are now made with confidence and determination. The person feels that, now, they are in tune with their true self, with what really matters. And, by connecting with this inner truth, they begin to notice that life is opening up before them in new and unexpected ways. Throughout this journey of transformation, something fundamental begins to reveal itself: acceptance. Not just of what has been lost, but also of what has been gained, even if quietly. The person begins to realize that, deep down, every step, every difficulty had a purpose. The pain, which once seemed unbearable, is now seen as a bridge to something greater, to a deeper understanding of life and one's own emotions. This acceptance doesn't come immediately, but gradually, as the pieces of the puzzle begin to fit together. The person starts to look back with a softer gaze, no longer carrying the weight of regret, but with gratitude for the journey lived. Each experience, no matter how painful it may have been, is now understood as an essential part of a process that led to clarity and inner wisdom. The truth is, no matter how great the pain was, it served to open the eyes to what has always been present. The person realizes that, by trying to fill the emptiness with distractions or replacements, they never really found what they were truly seeking. What was being sought was always within, in the recognition of one's own truth, of one's own light. Now, there's a sense of peace that begins to surround the person. A peace that comes from the understanding that, by connecting with one's own essence, everything aligns naturally. There's no longer the need to force things, to tirelessly search for something external. What is sought is already here, inside, and now it's possible to see and feel it clearly. This peace brings with it a great release. The person begins to realize that life doesn't need to be a constant struggle, but a natural flow. By letting go of old worries and fears, a new energy begins to emerge. The future is no longer faced with anxiety or doubt, but with confidence in the path being walked. The doors that were once closed begin to open, and new possibilities arise every day. Now, when looking to the future, the person understands that they are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. On the contrary, they have the power to create, to decide what is truly important, and to make more conscious choices. What was lost in the past now transforms into motivation to live more authentically and truly, with an open heart for new experiences and learnings. And finally, the person recognizes that the greatest gift of all has always been the opportunity to reconnect with themselves. True healing doesn't come from the outside, but from within. They begin to live with more lightness, with more freedom, knowing that each day is a new chance to make choices that align more with their essence. There are no more regrets, but a deep acceptance of everything that has been lived, knowing that, in every moment, life has always offered exactly what was needed for growth. If you've made it this far and felt that this message touched your heart, that it brought clarity and a new perspective to your journey, show your support now. Click the thanks button and show that you, too, are ready to live with more purpose and wisdom. Share this energy with others and continue to spread light in the world around you. What's coming is even more grand, and together we can create a future of peace, love, and transformation.